I'm sitting in my tiny dorm room, staring at my laptop screen. My hands are shaking because I'm about to send an email that will change everything. The subject line reads, "Official withdrawal from university." My finger hovers over the send button for what feels like forever. My roommate thinks I'm crazy. My parents are going to lose their minds. But here's what nobody knew: I had already been building something in secret for 8 months. Something that kept me up until 3 in the morning every single night. Something that made my heart race faster than any exam ever did. I hit send. The email whooshes away and suddenly I can breathe for the first time in months. That's when my phone rings. It's my sister, Emma. She somehow already heard through the family grapevine. And what she says next? I'll never forget it as long as I live. What did Emma say that cut so deep? And why did her words become the exact fuel I needed? Let me paint you a picture of my sister Emma. She's 3 years older than me and she's what everyone calls the golden child. Perfect grades since kindergarten. Student council president. Full academic scholarship to a top university. The kind of daughter who makes parents brag at dinner parties. Emma never colored outside the lines, never missed a deadline, never questioned a plan. College, corporate job, marriage, house, kids. She had it all mapped out like a GPS route with no detours allowed. And me? I was the opposite. I asked too many questions. I wanted to try everything. I changed my major twice before dropping out. To Emma, I was chaos in human form. We used to be close when we were little kids. I'm talking matching pajamas, secret handshakes, the whole deal. But somewhere around high school, something shifted. She started looking at me differently. Like I was a project that kept malfunctioning. Like my existence was a reflection on her somehow. So when I told her I was dropping out, her reaction wasn't just mean, it was personal. And it revealed something ugly I hadn't seen before. Emma's voice comes through the phone and I can already hear that tone. That big sister knows best tone that makes my stomach clench. "Please tell me this is a joke," she says. I take a deep breath and explain that I'm starting my own business. That I've been planning this for months. That I can't keep pretending to care about a degree that's leading me nowhere. And then she laughs. Not a supportive laugh. Not an "oh you're so brave" laugh. A laugh that says you're an idiot and I'm embarrassed to be related to you. She actually says, "Wow. I didn't think you could disappoint mom and dad more than you already have, but here we are." My chest tightens. She keeps going. "You're throwing away your future for what? Some little hobby? Some Instagram fantasy? Do you know how stupid this makes our whole family look?" I'm silent. She's not done. "Call me when you grow up and realize the real world doesn't reward quitters." Then she hangs up. I sit there in my empty dorm room, phone in hand, tears streaming down my face. But in that moment of total heartbreak, something inside me shifted. Something dangerous. Something that would change everything. Here's what nobody tells you about being completely humiliated by someone you love: it either destroys you or it forges you into something unbreakable. I chose option 2. That night, after Emma's call, I didn't sleep. I didn't cry anymore either. I opened my laptop and I made a promise to myself. A promise that would guide every single decision I made for the next 3 years. I promised that I would prove her wrong so completely, so undeniably, that she would never be able to look at me with that condescending smirk again. I wrote down every single thing she said to me. Every insult. Every laugh. Every "I told you so" that I knew was coming. I printed it out and taped it above my desk. Some people have motivational quotes from famous people. I had my sister's cruelty as my daily reminder. My roommate thought I was being dramatic. Maybe I was. But that paper on my wall became my North Star. Every time I wanted to quit, every time I doubted myself, I looked at those words. And let me tell you, spite is the most powerful motivator you'll ever find. So what exactly was this business I was building in secret? Okay, confession time. Remember how I said I'd been building something for 8 months before I dropped out? Here's what it was. During my sophomore year, I noticed something. All my friends, especially the women in their 40s and 50s who worked at the campus bookstore and cafeteria, were constantly asking me for help with their phones, their computers, basic tech stuff. But it wasn't just about not knowing how to use technology. They felt embarrassed about asking. They felt stupid. They felt left behind by a world that was moving too fast. And I realized there's nobody teaching technology to older women in a way that doesn't make them feel dumb. Every tutorial was made by 20-something tech bros, talking too fast and using too much jargon. So I started teaching free workshops at the local library. Just me, a projector, and a room full of women who wanted to learn how to video chat with their grandkids or start an online business or simply feel less intimidated by their smartphones. Those workshops filled up immediately, like wait list of 50 people immediately. And that's when I realized this wasn't just a hobby. This was a massive, untapped market that nobody was serving. But how do you turn free library workshops into a real business? So I started small, really small. I created simple video tutorials and put them on YouTube. Nothing fancy, just me, my phone camera, and clear explanations. How to use Facebook without accidentally posting something embarrassing. How to spot a scam email. How to set up online banking step by step. Basic stuff that made people feel safe and capable. And something crazy happened. Those videos started getting views. Not millions, but hundreds, then thousands. Women were commenting things like, "Thank you, I've been too afraid to ask anyone this, and my son treats me like I'm stupid when I ask tech questions. But you make me feel smart." Their comments made me cry. Happy tears this time. I realized I was actually helping people feel empowered instead of embarrassed. So I got bolder. I created a simple online course. $20 for a complete beginner's guide to technology. I thought maybe 10 people would buy it. I sold 300 copies in the first week. 300. I literally screamed in my dorm room. My roommate thought someone died. But this was just the beginning. Because what happened next made me realize I had to go all in, and that meant dropping out of college to do it. But my family was about to explode. Telling Emma was brutal, but telling my parents? That was a whole different level of nightmare. I drove home on a Saturday morning, my stomach in knots the entire 2-hour drive. I practiced my speech out loud in the car like a crazy person. My parents were in the kitchen when I arrived. Dad was reading the newspaper. Mom was making coffee. Such a normal, peaceful scene. I sat down at the kitchen table and just blurted it out. I'm dropping out of college to run my own business. The silence was deafening. Mom's coffee mug froze halfway to her lips. Dad slowly lowered his newspaper. Then the explosion came. Mom started crying immediately. "How could you do this to us?" Dad's face turned red. "Do you have any idea how hard we worked to send you to that school?" I tried to explain about the business, the sales, the potential. They weren't hearing any of it. Dad actually said, "This is embarrassing. What am I supposed to tell people at work?" Mom kept saying, "You're throwing your life away." But the worst part? They called Emma right in front of me to tell her, and her response made everything so much worse. Emma showed up at my parents' house 30 minutes later. 30 minutes. She lived an hour away, but apparently broke every speed limit to get there for this family intervention. She walked in with that look on her face. That "I knew this would happen" look that made me want to scream. And she didn't hold back. She sat down across from me at that kitchen table and laid into me like I was a child who broke a vase. "This is so typical of you," she said. "Always looking for the easy way out. Always thinking you're special and different. Newsflash, you're not." My parents just sat there, nodding along. Emma kept going. "You know what happens to people who drop out? They become statistics. They become failures. They end up working dead-end jobs and regretting their choices for the rest of their lives." I tried to speak. She cut me off. "And this little business thing? It's going to fail. Because you don't have discipline, you don't have follow-through. You give up the second things get hard." My mom was crying harder now. Dad looked disappointed in a way that physically hurt. But here's what none of them knew. While they were tearing me down in that kitchen, my phone was buzzing in my pocket with notifications that would prove them all wrong. My phone kept buzzing during that entire awful kitchen intervention. Buzz, 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 buzz. I ignored it because I was trying to defend myself against 3 people who had already decided I was a failure. But later, when I finally escaped to my car, I checked my phone. And I just sat there staring at the screen in disbelief. 27 new course sales. In the hour I was inside that house getting destroyed by my family, 27 women had purchased my course. That's $540 in 1 hour. While my family was telling me I was throwing my life away, I was literally making money. More money than I'd ever made at any part-time job. I started laughing. Not a happy laugh, kind of a crazy, unhinged laugh that probably scared the neighbors. Because the irony was just too much. I wanted to run back inside and show them my phone. Shove the proof right in their faces. But something stopped me. A better idea was forming. Why waste this moment of triumph on people who wouldn't even celebrate it? No. I decided to stay quiet. Let them think I was failing. Let them whisper about me at family dinners. Because in 3 years I'd have the last laugh and it would be so much sweeter. So that's exactly what I did. I went completely underground. I moved into the cheapest apartment I could find, and I mean cheap. The bathroom window didn't close all the way. The heat only worked sometimes. There were mysterious stains on the carpet that I tried not to think about too hard. But it was mine. My own space to build something from nothing. I stopped going to family dinners. Stopped answering Emma's condescending just checking in texts. Stopped trying to explain myself to people who had already written me off. I let them believe whatever they wanted to believe, that I was struggling. That I was barely surviving. That I'd come crawling back to college any day now. Meanwhile, I was working 16-hour days. I'd wake up at 5 in the morning and work until 9 at night. Creating courses. Filming videos. Answering customer emails. Building a website. Learning marketing. Teaching myself everything from YouTube tutorials and library books. I lived on ramen noodles and instant coffee. My furniture was from yard sales. My office was a folding table from Walmart and a chair I found on the curb. I was exhausted, broke, lonely, and absolutely terrified I was making the biggest mistake of my life. But then, month 3 happened, and everything changed. Month 3. I'll never forget it. I was sitting at my sad folding table, eating cereal for dinner because I was too tired to cook, when I got an email that made my heart stop. It was from a woman named Patricia. She'd taken my course and wanted to know if I did one-on-one coaching. She said she'd pay whatever I charged. I didn't have a coaching program. I didn't even know what to charge. But I said yes anyway. We got on a video call and she told me her story. She was 56 years old, recently divorced. Trying to start her own online business selling handmade jewelry but completely overwhelmed by the technology side. She was in tears talking about how her ex-husband always handled the computer stuff and made her feel stupid whenever she asked questions. My heart broke for her. We spent 2 hours together. I showed her everything: how to set up a simple website, how to take photos of her jewelry with just her phone, how to use social media without feeling overwhelmed. At the end, she was crying again, but happy tears this time. She paid me $200 for 2 hours. And then she did something that changed my entire business trajectory. Patricia told her friends about me, all of them. She literally created a group chat with 15 other women from her church and told them they had to work with me. Within a week, I had 12 new coaching clients. Within a month, I had 43. I couldn't keep up. I was doing video calls at 6 in the morning, 10 at night, on weekends. These women were incredible. They were starting businesses, reconnecting with grandchildren, managing their finances online for the first time, feeling capable and confident with technology, and they kept telling their friends. It was like wildfire. I had to raise my prices just to manage the demand. Then I raised them again, and again. Women kept paying. They told me constantly, "You're worth so much more than this." I started making more in a month than my dad made in 3 months at his factory job. More than Emma made at her corporate position with her fancy degree. But nobody in my family knew. I was still driving my beat-up car. Still living in my questionable apartment. Still wearing the same 5 outfits on rotation. Because I wasn't spending money. I was saving every single penny for something big. Something that would make Emma's perfect little worldview completely shatter. But I had to be patient. But let me be real with you for a second. This part of the story isn't glamorous. Yes, I was making money. Yes, the business was growing. But I was also completely alone. I'd cut myself off from my family. My old college friends had all moved on with their lives. I spent holidays by myself, working. My birthday came and went, I spent it filming course videos. There were nights when I'd finish work at midnight and just sit there in my apartment staring at the wall, wondering if this was all worth it. wondering if proving everyone wrong was really more important than having people in my life. I'd scroll through social media and see Emma's posts. Her perfect life, her engagement announcement, her bridal shower, her bachelorette party. My parents in every photo beaming with pride. Not a single person reached out to invite me. I wasn't even sure they remembered I existed. There were moments when I almost called, almost said you were right, I'm sorry, I'm coming back. Almost gave up the whole thing just to feel less alone. But every time I got close to quitting, something would happen that reminded me exactly why I started. And one of those moments was about to change everything. Her name was Margaret, and she was 72 years old. She booked a coaching call with me and showed up looking nervous, like she was about to take a final exam. She told me her daughter never visited anymore. Her grandkids were growing up and she barely knew them. She wanted to learn how to use video chat so she could see their faces. But more than that, she wanted to feel like she mattered. Like she wasn't just some old lady who didn't understand modern life. We spent our sessions setting up video calling and teaching her the basics. At the end, she grabbed my hand through the screen, literally put her hand up to her camera so I could see it. She said, "Thank you for treating me like I'm smart enough to learn this. My daughter acts like I'm a burden whenever I ask for help." I saw myself in Margaret. I saw my sister's face when she laughed at me, and I realized something huge. My business wasn't just about technology or making money, it was about dignity, about helping people feel valued and capable when the world made them feel small. That's when I knew I couldn't quit. Not just for me but for every Margaret out there. So I doubled down. And year 2? That's when everything got crazy. Year 2 was when I stopped playing small. I hired my first employee, a video editor who could help me create content faster. I invested in real equipment, proper lighting, a decent camera. I moved out of my terrible apartment into a slightly less terrible apartment. I even bought new clothes that didn't have holes in them. Revolutionary, I know. My course library expanded to 10 different programs: beginner technology, social media for seniors, online business basics, digital safety. Each one was selling like crazy. I started getting invited to speak at libraries and community centers. They'd pay me to come teach workshops to groups of women who were hungry to learn. I'd walk into rooms of 50, 60, sometimes 100 women, and the energy was electric. These women were so grateful, so eager, so ready to prove they could do this. I'd watch 70-year-olds learn to create Facebook pages for their businesses. 65-year-olds figure out how to sell their crafts online. 50-year-olds launch websites for their consulting practices. They were unstoppable, and their success stories became my success stories. My revenue hit 6 figures. 6 figures, me, the college dropout, the family disappointment, the girl Emma laughed at. But I still didn't tell anyone, because I was saving for something that would make their jaws hit the floor. Meanwhile, through occasional texts from my mom and social media stalking, I watched Emma's life unfold exactly as she'd planned. She graduated with honors, got her corporate marketing job at a Fortune 500 company, started dating a guy named Brad who looked like he stepped out of a catalog, got engaged within a year, had the Instagram perfect proposal with a photographer hiding in the bushes, bought a house in the suburbs with granite countertops and a 2-car garage. Everything was calculated, everything was safe, everything was the right way to do life. My mom would occasionally call me awkward, short conversations where she'd update me on Emma's accomplishments, like I was supposed to feel bad about my own choices. Emma got promoted again. Emma's planning a destination wedding. Emma and Brad are looking at new cars. Never once did she ask how I was doing. Never once did she wonder if maybe I was succeeding too. I let her talk. I'd say, "That's great," in a flat voice and change the subject. Because what was I going to say? "Actually, Mom, I made more last month than Emma makes in 6 months." I kept my mouth shut. Because timing is everything. And I was waiting for the perfect moment to reveal the truth. That moment was coming faster than I realized. Then came the text. From my mother. Short and cold. Emma's graduate school graduation is on May 15th, ceremony at 2 p.m. Dinner after at Giovanni's restaurant. You're invited if you want to come. If I want to come. Like I'm some distant relative, they feel obligated to include. Emma had been in graduate school part-time while working, getting her MBA. Because of course she was. Another degree, Another achievement. Another opportunity for the family to celebrate how perfect and successful she was. My first instinct was to ignore the text, to skip it completely. Why would I want to sit through another event where everyone looks at me with pity or disappointment, where Emma gets to shine while I'm the cautionary tale whispered about in corners? But then I thought about timing. 3 years had passed since I dropped out. 3 years since Emma laughed at me on that phone call. 3 years of building, grinding, succeeding in complete silence. And something clicked. This wasn't just Emma's graduation. This was my moment. The moment I'd been waiting for. The moment where I could walk back into that family with my head held high and show them exactly who I'd become. So I texted back, "I'll be there." And then I started planning something that would make this graduation unforgettable. But first, I needed to make one very important purchase. Remember at the beginning when I said I'd just finished signing papers on something that would make Emma's jaw hit the floor? Here's where that story begins. 2 weeks before Emma's graduation, I got an email from my landlord. He was selling my apartment building. I needed to move out in 60 days. Great. Just great. I started looking at apartments in my price range, and they were all worse than where I currently lived. Smaller. Dirtier. More expensive because rent had gone up. I was scrolling through listings feeling depressed when a wild thought crossed my mind. What if I didn't rent? What if I bought? I had money saved. More money than I'd ever had in my life. Money I'd been hoarding like a dragon guarding treasure, living below my means, saving every possible dollar. I pulled up my bank account and just stared at the number. It was enough. Enough for a down payment. Enough to actually own something instead of throwing money away on rent. So I called a realtor. Her name was Susan, and she was probably wondering why this young woman in thrift store clothes was inquiring about buying property. But when I told her my budget, her entire attitude changed. And what happened next was something I never could have imagined. Susan showed me houses for 2 weeks straight. Every day after work, we'd drive around looking at properties. Most of them were cute starter homes. 2 bedrooms, small yards, normal first house kinds of places. They were nice, practical, affordable. But something felt off. If I was going to do this, if I was going to make this big move, I wanted it to mean something. I wanted it to be undeniable. Then Susan called me with an odd listing. "This one's probably too big," she said. "And it needs work. But it's in your price range because the owners are desperate to sell. Want to take a look?" We pulled up to a house that made my heart skip. It was beautiful. Old Victorian style with a wraparound porch. 3 bedrooms. Gorgeous woodwork. Big windows. A real office space where I could film my videos and meet with clients. It needed cosmetic updates, paint, floors, some kitchen work. But the bones were solid. I walked through it in complete awe. This wasn't a starter home. This wasn't a starter home. This was a real house. A grown-up house. The kind of house someone successful owns. And it was in the same neighborhood as Emma and Brad, 2 streets away from their perfect suburban house. Oh, the irony was too delicious. I made an offer that same day. Full asking price. The sellers accepted within hours. Then came the scariest part, the mortgage application. I sat across from a loan officer named Tom, and he looked at my tax returns with a confused expression. "So you're self-employed?" he asked. Yes, I said, preparing for rejection. This is where they tell me my income doesn't count because it's not a real job, right? But Tom smiled. "Your income is excellent, very stable. You're approved." Just like that. Approved. Me. The college dropout. The family failure. The college dropout. The family failure. The girl who was supposedly throwing her life away. I was approved for a mortgage on a house that was twice the size of Emma's. A house 2 streets away from her perfect little suburban life. The closing date? May 12th. 3 days before Emma's graduation. The universe was literally handing me the most perfectly timed plot twist imaginable. I called Susan and said, "Let's do it." We scheduled the closing. I kept my mouth completely shut. Didn't tell my parents. Didn't tell Emma. Didn't post anything on social media. Just went through the process in total silence. Because showing up to Emma's graduation as a homeowner who lived in her neighborhood, that was going to be the opening act of the best reveal of my life. May 12th. I woke up feeling like I was going to throw up from nervousness and excitement. I put on the one professional outfit I owned, a blazer and pants I'd bought for speaking events. I drove to the title company office with shaking hands. Susan was already there, beaming at me. Ready to become a homeowner? She asked. Was I? I signed approximately 8,000 pieces of paper. My hand cramped. My brain couldn't even process what half of these documents meant, but with each signature it became more real. This was happening. Finally, the title officer slid a set of keys across the table. Congratulations, she said. The house is yours. I picked up those keys and just held them. These small pieces of metal represented everything I'd worked for. Every 16-hour day, every ramen noodle dinner, every family event I'd missed, every lonely night in my apartment. Every time someone doubted me, every time Emma laughed, it was all worth it. I drove straight to the house, my house, and just sat in the driveway crying happy tears. The ugly kind of crying where your face gets all splotchy. I walked through the front door as the owner, and I immediately started planning how I'd casually reveal this to my family in 3 days. But first, I had shopping to do. I had 3 days before Emma's graduation to make myself look like the success I'd become. Because here's the thing, I'd been living so far below my means for 3 years that I looked like a broke college student. My car was 12 years old and made concerning noises. My clothes were from thrift stores. My haircut was something I did myself with kitchen scissors. If I showed up to Emma's graduation looking like this, everyone would assume I was barely surviving. So I went shopping. Real shopping. I bought 3 professional outfits that actually fit properly. I made an appointment at a real salon and told them to fix whatever disaster was happening on my head. The stylist's eyes went wide when I took off my hat, but she got to work. I walked out with a haircut that made me look like an adult businesswoman instead of someone who cuts their own bangs at midnight. I even bought new shoes that didn't have holes in the soles. When I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. I looked successful, confident, put together. Like someone who had their life figured out. I took a selfie and almost posted it, but stopped myself. No. The reveal needed to be in person, face to face, where I could see Emma's expression when she realized everything she thought about me was wrong. May 15th. I woke up feeling like a warrior putting on armor for battle. I put on my new navy blue dress and blazer, did my makeup carefully, looked at myself in the mirror of my new house and thought, you've got this. I drove to the university where Emma's graduation was being held. The parking lot was packed with families holding balloons and flowers. I parked and sat in my car for a minute, taking deep breaths. This was it. 3 years of silence. 3 years of letting them think I'd failed. 3 years of building something incredible that nobody knew about. I grabbed my purse and walked toward the auditorium. That's when I saw them. My parents, standing near the entrance with Emma. My mom was fussing with Emma's graduation gown. Dad was taking photos. Emma was smiling that perfect smile, soaking up all the attention. I walked up behind them and said, "Hi." They all turned around. The looks on their faces were priceless. Shock. Confusion. My mom's mouth actually fell open. "You came," she said, like she didn't believe I'd actually show up. Emma looked me up and down, taking in my new appearance, and I saw something flicker in her eyes. Was it surprise? Concern? Fear? Good? She should be concerned about what else I was hiding. "You look different," Emma said slowly. There was no warmth in her voice. Just observation, calculation, like she was trying to figure out what game I was playing. "Thanks," I said simply. "You look great too. Congratulations on graduating." My mom hugged me awkwardly. The kind of hug you give someone you feel obligated to acknowledge but don't really want to touch. Dad nodded at me and said, "Glad you could make it," in a tone that suggested he was not in fact glad. Emma's fiancé Brad appeared with coffee. He looked confused about who I was. "Brad, this is my sister," Emma said. "Not my sister I've told you about. Not my sister I'm excited to see. Just my sister." Like an afterthought. Brad shook my hand and said something polite. I could tell Emma hadn't talked about me much. Or if she had, it wasn't positive. "We should head in," Emma said, checking her phone. "Ceremony starts in 20 minutes. We walked into the auditorium as a group, but there was this weird energy. Like everyone could feel the tension radiating off me and Emma. I took my seat in the back row, just like I'd planned. Let them have their spotlight moment. Because after this ceremony, I was about to steal the entire show. The graduation ceremony was exactly what you'd expect: long speeches about bright futures and following dreams. The irony wasn't lost on me. I sat in that back row watching Emma walk across the stage in her cap and gown, and I felt nothing: no jealousy, no regret, no wish that I'd stayed in school, just calm certainty that I'd made the right choice. My parents were in the front row, cameras out, cheering loudly when Emma's name was called. She smiled and waved, holding up her diploma like a trophy. Everyone clapped. It was her moment, and I was genuinely happy for her. Because here's the thing I'd learned in 3 years of building my business: there's enough success to go around. Her achievements didn't diminish mine. Her path didn't make mine wrong. We were just different people who wanted different things. But I also knew she didn't see it that way. To Emma, there was only one right way to live. Her way. And I was about to show her how wrong that thinking was. The ceremony ended. Everyone filed out for photos and celebrations. My mom caught up with me and said, "We're taking photos by the fountain, then heading to dinner. You're coming, right?" I smiled. Wouldn't miss it. The photo session was painful. My mom directed everyone like a wedding photographer. Emma in the middle. "Brad, stand here. Dad, move closer." I stood off to the side, watching. Nobody asked me to join the photos. Not one person said, "Hey, let's get a sister picture." I was invisible again, just like always. But then Brad, sweet clueless Brad, said, "Don't you want a photo with your sister?" Emma's face tightened. "Oh, sure. Yeah." She said it like someone agreeing to eat vegetables. We stood next to each other and smiled for the camera. No arms around each other. No genuine warmth. Just two strangers standing uncomfortably close. Click. Photo taken. Emma immediately stepped away. "We should head to the restaurant," she announced. "Our reservation is in 30 minutes. Giovanni's was Emma's favorite. Fancy Italian place with white tablecloths and waiters in bow ties. The kind of place where entrees cost $40. My mom looked at me nervously. "It's a bit pricey, honey. We can grab you something else if—" "I'm fine," I interrupted. "I can afford Giovanni's." Emma's eyebrow raised. Just slightly. "Can you?" "Oh, Emma. You have no idea what's coming." "My treat, actually," I said casually. "Graduation gift." And that's when the first crack appeared in her perfect facade. We arrived at Giovanni's, and the hostess led us to a large table by the window. Prime seating. Emma and Brad sat at the head of the table like it was their wedding reception. My parents sat on either side of them. I took the seat at the opposite end. The outcast position. Perfect. The waiter came with menus and Emma ordered an expensive bottle of wine without looking at the price. "We're celebrating," she announced to the table. Brad beamed at her. My parents glowed with pride. I opened my menu and stayed quiet. The waiter went around taking orders. Everyone ordered carefully, checking prices, doing math in their heads. When he got to me, I ordered the lobster ravioli and an appetizer without even glancing at the cost. My mom's eyes widened. Emma noticed. "Treating yourself?" she asked. There was an edge to her voice. "I am," I said. "It's a special occasion." The food came. Conversations flowed around me. Mostly about Emma's job, Emma's upcoming wedding, Emma's plans to buy a bigger house in a few years. I ate my lobster ravioli and let them talk. I was waiting. Then Brad asked the question that opened the door I'd been waiting for. "So what have you been up to these past few years?" The entire table went quiet. Everyone turned to look at me. Like they'd forgotten I existed, and suddenly remembered there was this whole other person with a life they knew nothing about. Emma sipped her wine, watching me over the rim of her glass. That same calculating look. "Well," I started slowly, "I've been running my business." "Right," Emma said. "The little tech thing. Are you still doing that?" "Little tech thing." The condescension was dripping. I smiled. "Yes. Actually, it's grown quite a bit." "That's nice," my mom said in that voice people use when they're being polite but don't really care. "Are you making enough to get by?" "I'm doing okay," I said casually. "Actually, better than okay." Dad perked up slightly. "You're making money from this?" "I am. I teach technology skills to women over 40. Started with online courses, expanded to coaching, speaking events. It's been really rewarding." Emma laughed. That same laugh from 3 years ago. "Come on, be real. How much could you possibly be making teaching grandmas how to use Facebook?" The table tensed. Even Brad looked uncomfortable. I set down my fork, looked Emma directly in the eyes, and said the number that would change everything. Last year? About 200,000. Silence. Complete and total silence. My dad's fork froze halfway to his mouth. My mom's face went pale. Brad's eyebrows shot up. And Emma? Emma looked like I just slapped her across the face. You're lying, she said flatly. I'm not, I replied calmly. I'm not, I replied calmly. 200,000 in revenue. After expenses and taxes, I took home about 140,000. This year I'm on track for 300,000. That's impossible, Emma said. Her voice was rising. You dropped out. You have no degree. You're working with, she paused, searching for words, old people and technology. That's not a real business. It's very real, I said. I have over 5,000 women who've taken my courses, 200 ongoing coaching clients. I speak at events 3 times a month. I have an email list of 15,000 people. I pulled out my phone, opened my business banking app, and slid it across the table to my dad. Here's this month's revenue so far. My dad stared at the screen. His mouth opened and closed like a fish. He slid the phone to my mom. Her hand went to her chest. Emma grabbed the phone from Mom, looked at the screen, and her face turned red. This can't be real. You're showing us fake numbers. Why would I fake numbers? I asked calmly. What would be the point? Because you want to make yourself look successful, Emma snapped. Because you can't stand that I did everything right and you, I what? I interrupted. Made different choices? Built something from nothing? Created a business that helps people? Emma's jaw clenched. You don't have a degree. No, I agreed. I don't. But I have skills. I have knowledge. I have 5,000 clients who disagree with your assessment of my qualifications. Brad cleared his throat. That's actually really impressive, he said quietly. Emma shot him a look that could kill. My mom was still staring at me like I was a stranger. Why didn't you tell us? Would you have believed me? I asked. Would you have believed me? I asked. Would you have celebrated with me? Or would you have told me I was being irresponsible and needed to go back to school? Nobody answered. Because we all knew the truth. My dad finally spoke. $200,000? Last year, yes. This year will be more. He sat back in his chair, processing. Then I decided to drop the second bomb. The one that would really make their heads explode. Actually, there's something else I should probably mention. I bought a house, I said casually, like I was mentioning the weather. My mom's wine glass tilted, nearly spilling. You what? Bought a house. Closed 3 days ago. 3 bedrooms, Victorian style, wraparound porch. It needs some cosmetic work, but the bones are solid. Emma was shaking her head. No, no way. You can't afford a house. I had enough saved for a 20% down payment, I said. The mortgage officer was very impressed with my tax returns. Where? My dad asked. His voice was strange, like he was talking to someone he didn't recognize. I smiled. Actually, it's in your neighborhood. Emma, 2 streets over, on Maple Avenue. The color drained from Emma's face. Maple Avenue? Those houses are about 400,000, I finished. Mine needed work, so I got it for 350. Still more than what you and Brad paid for yours, but that's okay. Brad choked on his water. Emma looked like she might flip the table. My mom was crying, again. But different tears this time. You bought a house, she whispered. By yourself. I did, I confirmed. Moved in this week. You should come by sometime. I'd love to show you what your disappointment of a daughter accomplished. Emma stood up so fast her chair scraped against the floor. Everyone in the restaurant turned to look. This is ridiculous, she hissed. You're showing off. You're trying to ruin my graduation. I'm answering questions about my life, I said calmly. You asked what I've been up to. I'm telling you. You're lying about everything. The money, the house, all of it. Because you can't stand that I'm successful and you're Emma, Brad said quietly, putting a hand on her arm. Sit down. Don't tell me to sit down, she snapped at him. She turned back to me, her face flushed. Do you know how hard I worked for my degrees? How many all-nighters I pulled? How much student loan debt I have? 73,000, I said. You mentioned it on Facebook. Her mouth snapped shut. I have 0 debt, I continued. Paid for everything in cash. The business equipment, the website, the house down payment. All cash. You're such a liar, Emma said, but her voice wavered. because she was starting to realize I was telling the truth. My dad spoke up, his voice gruff. "Emma, sit down. Let your sister talk." Emma sat, but she looked like a volcano about to erupt, and I wasn't done yet. "You want to know what I did for 3 years?" I asked. Nobody answered, but I could tell they were listening. Really listening. For the first time since I dropped out. I worked 16-hour days. I lived in an apartment that cost $500 a month and had mice. I ate ramen noodles and canned soup because I was saving every penny. I taught myself video editing, marketing, web design, everything. From YouTube tutorials and library books. My voice was steady, strong. I spent holidays alone because nobody invited me. I spent birthdays working because I had nobody to celebrate with. I built something from absolutely nothing while everyone I loved told me I was making the biggest mistake of my life. My mom was openly crying now. I found something I was good at, I continued. Something that mattered. Something that helped people. And I turned it into a business that's more successful than I ever imagined. I looked at Emma. "You laughed at me. You told me I'd fail. You said I was an embarrassment. But I didn't fail, Emma. I succeeded. Without a degree. Without anyone's approval. Without anyone's help." Emma's eyes were glossy with tears, but I couldn't tell if they were tears of sadness, anger, or shame. Maybe all three. "I didn't mean," she started, but I cut her off. "Yes, you did," I said firmly. "You meant every word. You thought I was stupid for dropping out. You thought I was throwing my life away. You thought following a non-traditional path meant I was destined to fail." Emma looked down at her plate. "And the worst part?" I continued. "You never once checked in to see if I was okay. Never asked how the business was going. Never offered support or encouragement. You just wrote me off." "We didn't know," my mom said weakly. "You didn't ask," I replied. "Not once in 3 years did anyone ask how I was really doing. You all just assumed I was struggling and left me alone to deal with it." My dad cleared his throat. "You shut us out. Because you made it clear you didn't support my choice," I said. "What was I supposed to do? Call you every week to report on my failures? Give you more ammunition to say, 'I told you so'?" The table was silent. The truth was hanging in the air, heavy and uncomfortable. Brad was staring at his plate. My parents looked guilty. Emma looked destroyed. Then Emma said something that surprised me. Something that cracked the armor she'd been wearing her whole life. "I was jealous." Emma's voice was barely a whisper. "I was jealous of you." I blinked. "What?" "You were brave enough to leave," she said, tears streaming down her face now. "You were brave enough to risk everything for something you believed in. And I've never done anything risky in my entire life." She wiped her eyes, mascara smudging. "I followed every rule. Did everything I was supposed to do. Got the grades, got the degree, got the job, got the fiancé. Everything everyone expected." Brad put his arm around her, but she kept talking. "And you just walked away from all of it. You didn't care what anyone thought. You just did what felt right. And I couldn't understand how you had that kind of courage when I've never had it." My mom reached across the table to touch Emma's hand. "And when you dropped out," Emma continued, "I was terrified you'd actually succeed. Because if you succeeded without doing everything the right way, then what did that say about me? About my choices? About all the sacrifices I made?" I sat there, stunned. This was not the conversation I expected to have tonight. This vulnerability from Emma, who'd always seemed so perfect, so confident, so sure of herself. "Emma," I said softly. "I never wanted to compete with you," I said. "I just wanted to be seen. To be respected for my choices, even if they were different from yours." Emma nodded, wiping her face with her napkin. "I know that now. But 3 years ago I couldn't see past my own fear." "Fear of what?" I asked. "Fear that I'd done everything wrong," she admitted. "I have $73,000 in student loan debt, like you mentioned. I hate my corporate job. It's soul-sucking and meaningless. I spend 8 hours a day in meetings that could be emails, working on projects I don't care about." She laughed bitterly. "And you get to wake up every day doing something you love, something that matters. Helping people. Being your own boss." "I was jealous of your freedom." Brad looked shocked. Apparently this was news to him too. "You never told me you hated your job," he said. "Because I'm supposed to be grateful for it," Emma said. "It's a good job with good benefits and a good salary. That's what matters, right?" My dad shifted uncomfortably. I realized we'd both been trapped by expectations. Hers to be perfect, mine to be conventional, and we'd both suffered because of it. Emma, I'm sorry, I said. I'm sorry? Emma repeated. For what? For disappearing, I said. For cutting everyone out. I was so focused on proving you all wrong that I forgot we were family. I forgot that maybe you had your own struggles too. My mom was sobbing openly now. Dad handed her his napkin. I was hurt by what you said, I continued. The laughing, the criticism, all of it. But I could have reached out, could have tried to build a bridge instead of just vanishing. Emma shook her head. No. I was cruel. I said horrible things to you. Things I can't take back. You were scared, I said. We were both scared. You were scared of being wrong. I was scared of failing. She reached across the table. I met her halfway. We held hands for the first time in 3 years. I'm proud of you, Emma whispered. I should have said that 3 years ago. I should have said that 3 years ago. I'm so proud of what you built. The dam broke then. I started crying too. Ugly, heaving sobs. My mom came around the table and wrapped both of us in a hug. Dad joined. We stood there in Giovanni's, this broken family trying to piece itself back together, while other diners pretended not to watch. But there was still one more thing I needed to say. When we all sat back down, faces blotchy and eyes red, I pulled out my phone. I want to show you something, I said. I opened my business Instagram account and handed it to my mom. 5,000 women in my community, hundreds of success stories. Photos of clients who'd learned to use technology, started businesses, connected with grandchildren. My mom scrolled through, reading comments. You changed my life. I finally feel capable. Thank you for treating me with respect. She looked up at me with wonder. You did all this? I did, I said. With nobody's help, nobody's money, nobody's connections. Just me and a laptop and a dream that everyone thought was stupid. I looked at Emma. You said I was helping grandmas use Facebook. Like that was something small and meaningless. But those grandmas? They're incredible women who deserve to feel empowered and confident. They're starting businesses at 60, learning new skills at 70, connecting with family they haven't seen in years. That matters. Emma nodded. It does. I see that now. And I want you all to see it, I said. The house, the business, everything I've built. Come over this weekend, I offered. Let me show you who I became when nobody was watching. That weekend, my entire family came to my house. I gave them the full tour, the office where I film videos, the wall of thank you cards from clients, the desk where I work 16-hour days, the kitchen where I finally have room to cook real meals. My mom kept touching things like she couldn't believe they were real. My dad kept shaking his head, saying, I can't believe you did all this. Emma walked through each room slowly, taking it all in. When we got to my office, she stopped at my vision board, the one I'd made 3 years ago with goals and dreams. Every single thing on that board had a check mark next to it. You did it, she said. Every single thing you said you'd do, you did it. I did, I agreed. Even when nobody believed I could. She turned to me with tears in her eyes. Teach me. What? Teach me how you did this, she said. How you found the courage to walk away from what everyone expected. How you found the courage to walk away from what everyone expected. How you built something that actually matters. Because I'm drowning in my perfect life and I don't know how to get out. And that's when I realized this wasn't just my success story. It was the beginning of Emma's transformation too. Okay, I said. I'll teach you. 3 months after Emma's graduation, we launched something new together. A program for women stuck in unfulfilling careers who want to make a change. Emma and I teaching together, her with the corporate experience, me with the entrepreneurial journey. It's been incredible. And here's what I learned through all of this. Success isn't about following one specific path. It's not about degrees or corporate jobs or doing what everyone expects. Success is about knowing yourself well enough to make choices that align with your truth, even when those choices terrify everyone around you. My sister laughed when I dropped out because my choice threatened her worldview. But at her graduation, when she saw what I'd built, she stopped laughing. Not because I'd proven her wrong, though I had, but because she realized we'd both been playing a game nobody wins, the game of living for other people's approval. So if you're reading this and you're the black sheep, the risk taker, the one who chose the unconventional path, keep going. Your success will speak louder than anyone's doubts. And who knows? Maybe the people who doubted you most will become your biggest supporters in the end. Because that's exactly what happened with me and Emma. We went from enemies to business partners, from broken to healing, and it all started the day I stopped letting her laughter define my worth. So that's my story. The dropout who proved everyone wrong. If you've ever felt like the black sheep in your family, drop a comment below. I see you. Smash that subscribe button if you want more real-life drama about overcoming failure and finding success your own way. My education journey after dropout wasn't easy, but it changed my life completely. That graduation day surprise? Best moment ever. Sometimes family reaction to dropping out is brutal, but your sibling reaction doesn't define your worth. This inspirational dropout story proves conventional paths aren't the only ones. What would you do if your sister laughed when you dropped out?